This episode contains graphic content that may not be suitable for all ages. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. Call or text 988 or chat with someone at 988lifeline.org. Those outside of the US, reach out to someone at your local crisis center or hotline. Please do not suffer in silence.
Alright, guys, these are called in and out burpees. So I'm going to demonstrate just a few. Tomorrow we do 7 for the challenge. Alright, here we go.
On the morning of Wednesday, April 18th, 2016, members of a fitness program began showing up at the Midlothian Creekside Church of Christ at around 4:30 a.m. Midlothian, a suburb on the southern outskirts of Dallas, Texas, is a small city that has grown exponentially over the past 20 or so years as the large cities just a few miles north, Dallas among them, but also Fort Worth and Arlington, exploded in popularity. These early rising gymgoers were part of a program called Camp Gladiator. As such, they were often referred to themselves as campers. Their coach, Missy Bevers, whose voice you heard just a moment ago, was a fitness enthusiast that had arrived at the church ahead of them a little after 4 a.m., 4:18 to be precise. She had started to pull into the parking lot a minute or two before then, and had then gone inside to begin preparing for the class, which started at 5. Missy had pulled her truck to the side of the building, and had then started to bring workout equipment into the church, where the campers presumed they would find her. These campers began showing up in the parking lot at around 4:35 a.m., but many would not enter until closer to 5. When they did, they stumbled upon a gruesome scene inside the church. 2 separate 911 calls would be made at approximately 5 o'clock that morning, and emergency personnel would be called out to the scene, arriving just a few minutes later. When they did, they discovered a lone female victim who had evidently been the victim of homicide, and a confounding mystery that endures to this day. This is the story of Terri Missy Bevers. The woman commonly known as Missy Bevers actually started out life as Terri Leanne Strickland, who was born on August 9th, 1970 in Graham, Texas to her parents, James and Norma Strickland. The second of 3 children, Missy had 2 brothers, one younger and one older, and would grow up in this area roughly 2 hours northwest of Dallas before relocating down closer to the city in adulthood. Having adopted the nickname Missy during her adolescence, she would graduate from Jacksboro High School in 1988. Afterward, she would attend a few different schools as she attempted to find her way in life, eventually settling upon Tarleton State University, which she graduated from in 1995 with a Bachelor of Science degree. But like many young adults, Missy struggled to find her purpose in life even after graduating, and she wasn't sure what she wanted to commit herself to for the rest of her life. She would go back to school to get her teaching certificate in special education, which she seemed to have an affinity for. She would teach special education classes for a time, before settling down a short time later. Missy married Brandon Bevers in 1998, and the couple would have 3 children together, all daughters. Their eldest, Hannah, was born in March of 2001, and was quickly followed by Allie in March of 2003. The third, Sarah, was born in November of 2007. After the birth of their first daughter in 2001, Missy had decided to stop teaching and become a stay-at-home mother, homeschooling the kids for the first handful of years and floating the idea of going back to work once they had all grown up a little bit. The 5-piece Bevers family lived in Red Oak, Texas, a suburb on the southern outskirts of Dallas. As their daughters got a little bit older, Missy found herself beginning to get accustomed to more and more free time each year, and began to dedicate what little time she had on her own physical well-being. She became focused in on her own fitness, and eventually began working with others on theirs. Instead of going back to her long dormant teaching career, Missy instead decided to pursue a career as a fitness instructor, which allowed her to combine elements of both teaching and fitness into a single program. Missy began teaching a Camp Gladiator boot camp, which often held classes in public facilities, gyms, parks, even churches. Class was often held at the Midlothian Creekside Church of Christ, roughly 20 minutes or so away from the Bevers' home, which allowed her to remain close by in case her family needed her. For a time, things seemed to be progressing rather smoothly. Missy was able to combine her two passions, fitness and teaching, into a single job, which gave her a newfound sense of purpose outside of her family. They would later write about her. Missy was more than just a Camp Gladiator instructor trying to help you become more physically fit. She wanted her campers to also be mentally, emotionally, and spiritually fit. Browsing her Facebook page from April of 2016, you really do get a sense of Missy's passions and a little bit of her personality. Most of her page was dedicated to her family, with her constantly sharing pictures of her daughters. She also solicited well wishes for her husband, Brandon, who was going in for minor surgery in the middle of the month. She would also post quite frequently about the various fitness programs she was involved with, most notably Camp Gladiator. She also posted every so often about her favorite baseball team, the Texas Rangers, which, as a Seattle Mariners fan, I cannot endorse, but I do respect. Anyways, on the evening of Sunday, April 17th, 2016, the area around Dallas prepared itself for a significant rain and thunderstorm, which stood to impact outdoor events. While Missy often used public facilities to host her training events, they almost always worked out outdoors, so that evening, Missy took to Facebook, posting an image that read, "If it's raining, we're still training," and informed her Camp Gladiator Midlothian fitness students that they would be meeting indoors early the following morning. "We are excited to see all your smiling faces in the morning." As expected, heavy clouds rolled in overhead, and the rain and thunder followed. Meanwhile, over in Midlothian, evil prepared itself. A handful of hours after Missy made her Facebook post, a mysterious vehicle was spotted driving through parking lots nearby. The vehicle occasionally stopped and turned off its lights more than once, before leaving the parking lot just moments later. It only then disappeared out of frame, headed off to destinations unknown. Minutes later, a camera inside the Midlothian Creekside Church of Christ, where Missy planned to hold her Camp Gladiator event that morning, was triggered. The camera did not capture anything of note, but it was motion activated, indicating that it might have been activated by some kind of movement inside the church. Roughly 2 hours later, Missy arrived to begin setting up her Camp Gladiator class. The motion-activated cameras inside would film her walking through the church to begin setting up, and then turning to see someone. A dark presence, clad head to toe in tactical police equipment. What follows is something known only to a select few. Police arrived at the Midlothian Creekside Church early that morning, just after 5 a.m., and quickly determined that 45-year-old Missy Bevers had been the victim of a homicide. While authorities have kept specific details of the crime vague, they did admit that Missy had died of undetermined head injuries committed by an unknown instrument. Later, search warrants issued by investigators revealed that she had died of multiple puncture wounds found on her head and chest, and the murder weapons appeared to be tools found near her body. These tools supposedly included a hammer and potentially even a knife. There were visible signs of forced entry at the church and signs of a struggle near Missy's body. As I mentioned, more specific details would be withheld by officials, with Midlothian Police Chief Kevin Johnson telling reporters, "In the interest of the ongoing investigation, we are not releasing any details at this time. We are not speculating on the motive of the suspect or whether there are any prevailing theories to explain this particular crime. Our investigators are working around the clock to figure out what exactly happened." The case would be overseen by the Midlothian Police Department, who were assisted from the early hours by the Texas Rangers and the FBI. They even received some assistance from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, more commonly known as the ATF, who brought in a bomb-sniffing dog named Titan to the Midlothian Creekside Church on April 20th to search for any sign of shell casings or gunshot residue. It's not believed that either were found. Later in the day on April 18th, 2016, Midlothian Police Chief Carl Smith would speak to the press, and he would get relieved by Captain John Spann minutes later.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl Smith, and thank you for coming today. First of all, we want to offer our heartfelt condolences to the family of the victims. This is a tragic event for all involved, including our community. This morning at approximately 5 a.m., Midlothian officers and EMS were dispatched to an unresponsive person to the Creekside Church in the 5400 block of East Highway 287. Midlothian officers arrived at the location just after fire department medics arrived on the scene, and the medics were attending an unresponsive female as officers entered the church. The officers observed a lot of glass, broken glass on the floor, and the female, as well as the female. They started a search of the building to make sure there were no other individuals in the facility. During the search, the officers found evidence of forced entry into the building, indicating a possible burglary. The entire building was searched and nobody was found. After that, the victim was pronounced deceased by Ellis County Justice of the Peace Bill Woody, and officers at the scene located evidence, again, forced entry. The victim was identified as Terri Bevers, 45 years of age, from Midlothian, Texas. The victim was transported to Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office. During the course of the investigation, detectives located and collected a video evidence. The video depicts an unknown male walking inside the church building dressed in police-type clothing and wearing a helmet and gloves. We are releasing the video. I believe Commander Spann is going to let you guys know how to get that on our YouTube channel. We are asking and soliciting any information regarding this offense or identity of any unknown male. The video asked to call Midlothian Police Department at 972-775-3333. The investigation is ongoing and further updates will be provided as additional information becomes available. This is an unusual occurrence for our community, and our first priority is the safety and well-being of our citizens. The Midlothian Police Department is dedicated to delivering police services in partnership with our community to keep Midlothian the safest place to live, work, and visit. At that time, and I'll answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Do you know what time the suspect walked into the church based on the surveillance footage?
I do not know that information at this time. Commander Spann may have more specific information that I'll pass on to him in just a second.
But he walked in before she arrived, and is that how?
My understanding is that he was inside the facility prior to our victim entering the building, according to the video.
So are you saying maybe she interrupted a burglary in progress?
It certainly is possible. The individual was there, and we have evidence of broken glass and damage to the facility prior to her arrival.
Chief, who found her? Who found her?
She is an instructor for a fitness club here in Ellis County. And she was preparing for a class, and was actually having a class inside the facility today because of the rain. And so her students actually were in the building and found her and notified law enforcement, EMS, of her condition.
Chief, could you go into more detail about what this suspect was wearing when you described it as police-like clothing?
Yes. The suspect is actually wearing what we would describe as what you see on many times in a TV situation, in a full tactical type gear, a heavy vest, a heavy helmet, gloves, BDU type pants with police on the front and I believe on the back. So from all intent purposes, he is designed to look like a police officer. His intent was to look like a police officer.
Chief, could it be possible that she was targeted? She had posted on her Facebook that she was going to be there. Is there a possibility that this is not random?
We're exploring all possibilities. It certainly is a strange occurrence at this time of morning for a church to be burglarized early in the morning, and also that it certainly looks like an opportunity for either it's just an odd random situation that they would actually happen to come into a building that was being burglarized on a Monday morning. But all scenarios are on the table right now. We're just now really getting into the meat of this investigation, so we'll be looking at every avenue of investigation following that through to the end that we can get.
Was there evidence of burglary? Was there evidence of things stolen from the church?
We don't have any idea or any evidence that things were actually taken from the facility, but a lot of damage within the facility.
Chief, did you say the victim was shot?
I did not say that. No, sir.
Do we know how the victim was killed?
We're not releasing any information on her injuries right now.
So is there any, in the video, is he doing anything prior to?
In the video, you can see him walking through the hallways, and it's really the only thing that we see him doing is walking through various hallways. I believe the cameras are or motion activated, so as he's moving through, you see them click on, but we can't really tell that he's doing anything particular in any one of the videos, to my knowledge.
We'll let Chief Smith just answer one more question and then let him get back to what he needs to do, and then I'll try to fill in a couple more questions after that to fill in any gaps and talk to you about how we'll release the additional information.
Is there information in the
Have
car?
you had any other people like this, or any other MOs or other robberies or burglaries with this person doing the same?
No, this is an extremely unusual situation for the city of Midlothian. We have a very, very safe community. In fact, this is going to be the first event of my tenure here in almost 10 years. So nothing like this has happened before.
It's the first event,
First type of, well, actually our first homicide in my tenure in 9 years. So, all right, thank you.
Again, my name's John Spann, Captain with command over our Criminal Investigation Division. And like I said, I can take a couple more questions, but a lot of this stuff we'll put out in an expanded press release that'll be on our police department Facebook page, along with the link that'll allow you to go to YouTube and see the video footage of the suspect in the building.
Did the suspect appear to be armed?
Could not tell from the video if he was armed. He did have some type of object that he was using to pry on doors. The video shows the suspect, as Chief said, walking through the building. We don't have anything identified yet that's been stolen, but there were several doors within the church that were breached by the suspect. But at this time, we don't have anything. The church personnel there have not noticed anything specifically missing. But we do know he went into several rooms.
Sorry, I don't know if the chief finished his statement, but who found her and how?
Like he said, she's part of a Camp Gladiator boot camp that meets there. The camp normally starts at 5 a.m. She arrived approximately a little after 4 a.m. and was in the process. Her vehicle was parked by the entry door, unloading her equipment. She was actually found by one of the boot camp participants who got there a little bit early, waited outside for a while, and then once some of the other people arrived, they entered the building to go start their boot camp, and is when they located her. And at that time, just assumed that she was unresponsive until they saw her injuries and called. So our initial response was to an unresponsive female at the church. Like the chief said, once the officers got there, their preliminary search, they did determine that there was forced entry into the building, broken glass throughout the building, and from that determined that it was possibly a burglary that she may have walked in and interrupted.
How long had the person been there? Any idea before this crime happened?
Like Chief said, we have some video surveillance. The video in the church works on motion section. So we can't say for sure when he got into the building, but the first time he appears on the camera is about 10 minutes before 4 a.m. But that's not to say that he wasn't in the building prior to that, because he may not have been anywhere where they captured video.
Any concern? This guy's dressed up in tactical gear. Any concern?
Well, yeah, of course, that concerns. Like I said, when we first saw the video, like Chief said, this is a subject that you would normally see doing some type of raid, wearing looks like a heavy vest with police on the back. I believe police on the front. Again, I haven't had a chance to look at the video that we're going to upload, but again, the still pictures that I saw, to look at it, I would say it was a tactical officer in the building. He had the tactical style helmet, gloves, even looked like he possibly had shin guards on it, and like Chief said, a BDU style pant.
Is there a video that's showing how he got to the church? Was he in a car?
There were no cameras outside of the church, but again, part of our investigation, there's nothing close to the church, but even businesses that were within eyesight of the church, we've gone and collected video. We've got video from a couple of the businesses around there, and we'll continue to reach out to the community to capture or try to collect any type of video that could assist in this. But there's no outside video on the church. They do have a camera, but it was not functioning at the time.
Can you say anything about the trauma on the victim's body that the victim suffered in this case?
Like I said, we're not going to go into details right now. The Justice of the Peace in Ellis County is who pronounces somebody deceased. Bill Woody responded to the scene, pronounced her deceased, and then her body was taken to the Dallas Medical Examiner's office, who they will determine what type or possible type of weapons and the injuries that are on her.
And Captain, any concern that this victim posted on social media where she would be, or do you think this is random? Did that have anything to do with it, is the question?
I don't know that anything related to where she would be. We did see that where she announced. Again, she's a boot camp instructor and I believe teaches other class beside this one because there was a second location that she was going to be at. But again, a lot of times with social media, people are putting that information out there. Again, we're at the very onset of this investigation and we're looking at all the social media. There's several people that have called us that we will follow back up with to see what information they have. We've reached out to area agencies. We got assistance from the Ellis County Sheriff's Department that has a property evidence collection team that came out to assist us in collecting the evidence. And we've reached out to, again, some local agencies, some investigators that would come in and give us assistance to make sure we're taking every effort to track down any possible leads on this. Again, like Chief said, this is unusual for the city of Midlothian. This isn't something we deal with on a daily basis. So it's something that we're going to make sure that it's done and it's done right.
Just in case the burglary scenario, have you guys had many calls there for burglaries at all or ever?
No, we did look at that. I don't show any type of alarm calls or anything of that nature at that location, at least in the last 8 to 12 months. I didn't pull up anything. But again, that's part of the investigation that we'll look and see any kind of incidents that may have happened out there.
Is there an alarm on the church?
Not that we're aware of. In our city, we have an alarm permit ordinance, and I don't show a permit for that church, which leads me to believe they don't have an alarm. And in any case, there was no alarm or anything that indicated when this gentleman broke into the church and notified us. Again, it was some of the boot camp members that discovered the victim.
Is Miss Bevers in the video as well?
The video that we're going to release to you is of the suspect. There's no video of the assault that took place. There is video of Mrs. Bevers when she first enters the church, but I don't believe that's part of the video that's being released right now in respect to the family.
But do you know if it was, if it happened very quickly, if she arrived and?
It was pretty quick after she got there. Again, the timeline from the boot camp members that were arriving there. Again, we know the time that she entered the church, which I believe is going to be around 4:18, again, approximate time. We see her in the video. She's walking down the main hallway in the vicinity of where we located her. But once she gets out of the range of the camera, it doesn't pick up the motion and the camera turns off. So we don't have anything, like I said, we have no video of the assault actually taking place.
But this is being labeled a murder case?
Yes, until we know otherwise.
Did the suspect stay around after the assault happened?
I believe he left shortly after that. Again, going back, piecing together the videos because you're getting different angles depending on what cameras. But I don't believe he left pretty much right after that occurred. I don't believe he went into we don't have any indication that he went anywhere else to any other rooms within the building after the assault took place.
Was anything taken?
At this time, the church members or our department, we have not identified anything to be missing.
So, and is he seen fleeing? Is he seen after the assault?
Again, we see him walking down one of the hallways, but presumably he went out the way he came in, which was through a metal door that had a glass window that was broken out. And again, this is all speculation on our part, that broke the window and reached inside to open the door. But we also have a second and third windows that were broken, but we don't have any evidence that anybody ever went through them. They were just broken.
It's got to be concerning that not only do we have a killer on the loose, we have a killer who is impersonating a police officer on the loose. So the people here in Midlothian, what can you tell them that when they encounter someone who's dressed as a police officer, that they know that they are actually dealing with a sworn police officer instead of an impersonator who's out to harm them?
On our day-to-day business as police officers, we don't dress out in that tactical gear like that. So again, I don't know. Well, from the description we have, we will reach out to other agencies and check to see if they've had any type of similar offenses, even involving anybody that may have been dressed as an officer. Any kind of lead we can get will be followed up on. But again, we feel like that this is an isolated incident. Like I said, that's what makes this so unusual, is having somebody go into that length to dress up like that. Like I said, it's nothing we have experienced, and I'm not aware of anything like that going on in the Metroplex that we're aware of. But again, this happened at 5 this morning. We just cleared the scene about 12 p.m. We're still in the process of following down leads and looking at everything that we've got.
The Midlothian Police Department admitted that this was the first murder case in the city in over a decade. Yet due to the specific details, which we'll be getting into shortly, it attracted a lot of attention quickly. Many would theorize that the investigators handling the case were ill-equipped for it, but that's something else that I'll touch on later in the episode. Initially, investigators theorized that Missy had interrupted a burglary in progress, but additional evidence would shed a different light on the matter. For starters, nothing of value seemed to be missing, either from the church or Missy. Missy's purse and iPad were both found at the scene, inside of her truck, along with a gun that she had left behind in there, which seemed to have been untouched. Similarly, nothing from the church was reported missing, including several items of value. Online gossip has speculated that Missy's face and chest were mutilated by her killer, although that is just speculation at this point and has not been reported by any credible sources, so take that with a huge grain of salt. But if it is true, then this simple fact would imply that Missy interrupting a burglary would not be a legitimate cause for the crime. This type of mutilation implies that the crime was either personal or calculated, potentially both. Sadly, the Creekside Church where this crime took place did not have a security system, and the surveillance cameras outside the church were not working at the time. But there were cameras inside that were working, and they began to show investigators the horrible story that unfolded that fateful morning. These indoor cameras showed Missy arriving at the church a little after 4:15 a.m. to begin getting ready for her fitness class that began at 5 o'clock. This footage involving Missy has never been released to the public, but it apparently revealed that she was not alone inside the church that early in the morning. Someone wearing what looked like police tactical gear had been inside the church roughly half an hour before Missy arrived, opening some interior doors of the church and occasionally breaking glass. This individual was seen carrying around a number of tools, which were believed to have been used as weapons when Missy later arrived. Police would disclose in a search warrant that puncture wounds found on Missy's body were consistent with tools the suspect was carrying around the building. At one point, this individual can be seen carrying a small white box in their left hand, which many believe may have contained a newly purchased knife. The outfit that this individual wore appeared to be a tactical police outfit, like the ones worn by SWAT teams or riot cops, which they adorned from head to toe. A search warrant later filed by police described the suspect as wearing a black helmet, black balaclava, dark pants, dark long-sleeve shirt, black gloves, and a black vest with police in white lettering on the front and back, and detailed their movements as walking throughout the building holding a hammer, breaking windows, and going through offices of the church. This person walked with a noticeable gait underneath all the equipment, which many suspected may have been due to a pre-existing limp. For obvious reasons, this individual, who first appeared on the church's interior surveillance cameras at around 3:50 a.m., was believed to have been the killer of Missy Bevers roughly half an hour later. Now, we're going to pause for just a moment to hear a word from today's sponsors. In the immediate aftermath of this heinous crime, public suspicion lingered around the person that it almost always does, the victim's spouse. Missy's husband, Brandon Bevers, was featured prominently in the early investigation, and as word of Missy's murder spread throughout the internet, he found himself facing a lot of harsh criticism and skepticism early on. To his credit, Brandon informed police and the world at large that he had been out of state at the time, on an annual fishing trip in Biloxi, Mississippi, more than 500 miles away. That alibi was confirmed by authorities, but that would not stop the internet rumor machine from swirling, causing Brandon to try and get ahead of it on April 19th, the day after Missy's murder, when he spoke to the press for the first time.
Now, the main purpose here today is solely to communicate to the people in the community and to everybody watching and listening. My wife was she was a godly woman, and she was very passionate about changing people's lives with fitness and changing their mental attitude towards their body and themselves and their abilities in life. And personally, I haven't involved myself in a lot of what she does, but now that I'm seeing some of her campers, I've noticed a substantial impact that she's had on so many people's lives, and I'm very proud of her. And I just want it to be publicly known that we are very proud of all of the passion and effort that she's put into so many people's lives. As far as the perpetrator, I don't know, we still don't know who he is, but I ask everybody out there to review the video. I think you can get the video on the Midlothian Police Department's Facebook website. Look at the video. The person has a very distinct walk. There's just a very distinct mannerism about this person that should be very apparent to somebody. Okay? I don't believe there was a vehicle there. This perpetrator, I don't know if he walked into the facility or if he we don't know how he arrived at the facility. But I'm just hoping that somebody either saw something or somebody can recognize the mannerisms of this person on the video. It's very important to us to get some closure with that, and but at the same time, I want to definitely publicize that my wife was she was a great woman, a great a wife, a great mother, a great friend, and she will be missed by many people. But please be diligent as you can and review the video and report anything to the Midlothian Police Department. And I appreciate your time.
Afterward, Brandon would ask for privacy for himself and his family, who were still grieving and trying to make sense of their tragic loss. Yet they would not be afforded much privacy in the weeks ahead. Web sleuths and other internet commenters began to speculate about the involvement of Brandon in his own wife's murder, as well as others in his family. In particular, his father, Randy, who noticeably walked with a bit of a limp, similar to the gait scene exhibited by the unknown subject in the Midlothian Church's security feed. A search warrant filed just days after Missy's murder included and sought after information about Randy, who it turns out had brought a pair of bloody shirts into Midlothian's dry clean supercenter just days after Missy's murder, one of which was a woman's shirt, which obviously raised some eyebrows. When asked about the matter, Randy told the dry cleaner employees that the blood came from an animal, and when questioned by police, clarified that it had come from a dog, specifically one of his dogs, who had gotten into a fight with another family member's dog and was killed during the scuffle. The dry cleaners claimed that Randy had clearly tried to clean the shirt beforehand, but brought it into them when that did not work out. Despite this seeming a bit like a hokey story, it turns out to have actually been completely accurate. Randy's vet, the Animal Emergency Hospital of Mansfield, confirmed the story he had told to investigators, and the blood on the shirts was tested and later confirmed to have belonged to an animal. Yet the timing was incredibly suspicious, and online speculation regarding this strange coincidence continues to this day, with certain commenters believing that Randy Bevers, and by extension his son Brandon, Missy's husband, had something to do with her murder. Yet, like Brandon, Randy also had an alibi out of state. He had been out in California at the time of Missy's murder, another alibi that was later confirmed by authorities. The week after Missy's murder, Brandon and Randy would decide to speak to the press together outside of the Midlothian police station. There, they would be asked about not only the bloody shirts, but a few other things.
They had everything. They have my flight tickets, the rental car that we rented in Gulfport, Mississippi. Matter of fact, when I pulled into my driveway Monday at 3 p.m., I was in a car with Mississippi plates on it. And all of that's a non-issue.
Randy, minor thing, the dry cleaner had your shirt listed as a woman's double XL shirt, just a mistake. That's your shirt. The dry cleaner listed your shirt with the bloodstains on it as a women's.
Well, my wife's white shirt had bloodstains on it too. So both of us had bloodstains on her shirt and mine. So because
So there are 2 shirts of blood on it?
Yeah.
The warrant only listed one.
The warrant only listed one. Where's the other shirt?
The dry cleaners.
So the dry cleaner calls and says there's blood on...
I don't know what the dry... I don't know the conversation between the cleaners and the police station. Okay, I don't know that conversation.
But you're saying there's blood on 2 shirts?
There's 2 shirts that's got blood on it. Okay?
And then, Randy, even though it's brought you this attention, would you say that you're glad that they're looking so closely
You better
at all
believe
of
it.
this?
You better believe it. You better believe it. If they weren't, they wouldn't be doing their job. Okay, so by them doing this, it tells me that they're being diligent and doing their job on any tiny little whatever comes across is being looked at, and it should be. So that's great.
Do you have a photo of that Chihuahua? I know I keep a lot of photos of my dog.
No, my wife would have, but I don't have one. But but it's just a little.
That was that dog was her. That dog was a very precious animal to her.
Yeah,
I mean, very.
What's his or her name?
Huh? Kilo.
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 Can you get your wife to email us a picture of the dog?
Well, we'll see.
Did you guys talk about anything else with the investigators other than the shirt and the dogs today?
Not really. We've been just sitting in there waiting for you guys to show up. So.
And I know, Brandon, you've talked with investigators several times. You continue to do that clearly. I mean, how many times would you say you've talked with them?
Yeah. I've only had one. Formal interview that was early in an early stage of the game, but and they call me periodically, and I call them periodically because I think of certain things that I want to make sure that they're looking into. I even called them today, and I was like, "You need to look into this avenue. You need to look at this," and in 90% of the cases, they've already done it. So, but it's, I sit and I think about catching this person, and I think I just role play in my mind any possible leads that I can give, but in 90% of the times that I've reached out to them to provide them this information, they've already gone down the avenue.
And I know when we talked with you last, you had said that you believe she had walked in on a burglary.
I need to clarify that. When I came up here to review, now you got to remember, that was on Tuesday or Monday when I gave that statement?
I want to say it was Tuesday.
Okay. You got to remember, no sleep. I'm in bad health, and no, I do not believe that she was. I believe that she was targeted. Okay, that's my opinion. That's not any information that anybody provided me, but I believe she was targeted.
For what reason?
Yeah, for why? I mean,
evidence, for reasons of evidence, I'm not going to say that. But there's no reason, if a person, you have to ask yourself, if a person's going to break into a church, what are they going to take? What are they there to steal? AV equipment? I work in a church. Some of the most expensive equipment in a church is AV equipment, or money from tithings from the previous day. Okay, those are the two things.
The unknown subject, seen wearing police tactical gear in the church surveillance footage on the morning of April 18th, had exhibited some strange behavior in the time surrounding the murder of Missy Bevers. Using a hammer and a pry bar, this unsub was believed to have smashed glass and opened various doors inside the church, having gained access by forcefully opening a side door. Yet despite lurking there for at least half an hour before Missy's murder, they had quickly left, having apparently been gone by the time her Camp Gladiator fitness students started to arrive at approximately 4:35. That in itself was less than 20 minutes after Missy was seen entering the church. Because of the circumstances of the crime, police immediately suspected that the unsub was a male, someone who walked slowly and seemed to steady themselves against walls. Investigators would even note a potential issue with their right leg or foot, which caused them to limp in a not insignificant way, but perhaps exacerbated by the tactical equipment they wore, which was almost always pretty weighty. Investigators would even speculate that this may have been an issue specific to the culprit in April of 2016, something like a sprained ankle. As I mentioned, authorities would release select snippets of this footage to the public shortly after Missy's murder, in the hopes that the unsub's recognizable gait could be identified. However, in doing so, the case attracted a lot of attention early on, and online commenters were the first to really point out that the unsub's walk or gait looked a bit, how should I say this, dainty? Due to that, the day after Missy's murder, Assistant Police Chief Kevin Johnson told the press, "We are backing off our statement that the suspect on video was a man. I know we said he over and over again yesterday, and that was a mistake. There is a lot of speculation based on the gait and appearance that this person may be a woman. It's a legitimate question right now. That does not mean I'm saying this suspect is a woman. It's just, at this point, we can't rule it out. We don't know yet." The details and potential motive for this killer would remain elusive in the many weeks and months to come. Police originally suspected that the killer stood between 5 feet 2 inches tall and 5 feet 7 inches tall, and may have had a stockier build, although they would never estimate the unsub's weight because of the bulky tactical equipment they wore at the time. Because the equipment itself was so thick, it was hard to get an idea of the killer's frame. While investigators had originally suspected this to have been a burglary gone wrong, the surveillance footage had changed that. It was now believed that the unsub had simply been laying the groundwork for this to appear like Missy had interrupted a burglary in progress, which in itself indicated a certain level of malice and premeditation. Over time, investigators would come to suspect that the crime had been completely orchestrated and that Missy may have been specifically targeted by her killer. Toby Shook, a longtime prosecutor asked to weigh in on the case by news network WFAA, theorized that the killer had prepared the scene to look like a robbery and wore the tactical police uniform to get the drop on the victim, to make them think you're police so they can feel safe around you. It remains unknown what happened in the time between when Missy entered the Midlothian Creekside Church and when the offender attacked her, so it's unknown if this had been the intended purpose of the police tactical uniform. Yet, others in Missy's orbit believe that she had been intentionally targeted, perhaps even having been stalked or harassed in her final weeks alive. Mark Garcia, an acquaintance that managed a gym Missy regularly worked out at, told CBS News that she seemed different before her death. He stated, "She seemed a little more reserved. I don't think she was at the wrong place at the wrong time. I feel like someone was after her." In the days ahead, it would come to light that some of the warrants filed in Missy's case related to her correspondence online, in particular as it related to some messages she had sent and received on LinkedIn, a social media site centered around business networking, which she had regularly used to try and build up her fitness profile. Approximately 3 days before her murder, Missy had received a message on LinkedIn, which she reportedly showed a friend that she was with at the time. This friend later told police that the message was from a male unknown to them both, and they both agreed that the message was creepy and strange. Police would later file a warrant to obtain information from LinkedIn and this user, and it's unknown what they discovered afterward. However, while looking through Missy's LinkedIn profile, they discovered that at least one other person had been in constant contact with Missy through it in the months before her death, and that their messages ultimately turned flirtatious and familiar. Many had been deleted by the time investigators found this information, but the ones that they were able to find and or recover, according to their warrant, appeared to be intimate in nature. This individual that she had been talking to, a male, was later tracked down by investigators and confirmed that both Missy and he had been flirting and sending intimate messages to each other, but it's not publicly known if they had gone any further than that. This came as a huge surprise to many in the orbit of the Bevers family, who thought of them as a happy, seemingly perfect family, which they were evidently not. Additional warrants filed by investigators revealed that Missy and Brandon had problems before her death, that the two were having both marital and financial problems, and that some of their messages even referred to extramarital affairs. As you can imagine, this information caused the internet rumor machine to begin spinning into overdrive once again regarding Brandon and his theoretical involvement. Online speculators theorized that he may have hired a hitman to kill Missy, and other things of that nature. Yet, police would state that there was currently no reason to suspect any involvement by the family. Yet, they also still had not made any arrest in this case. It remains unknown whether or not this reported infidelity or any of the money problems had any effect on the investigation, or really altered its course in any way. Yet, many have been quick to speculate about it online, that either Missy or Brandon had had an affair, and that their jealous lover had killed Missy. As far as I know, there's absolutely no evidence to support that, but you can find countless discussion threads on websites like Reddit and Web Sleuths regarding this very matter, and I cannot support seeking any of it out. After hours of reading, I found that it's a rabbit hole of which there is very little substance. Mostly just gossip or rumor mongering. Missy's phone was not password protected and was found at the crime scene. Investigators would scour through it in an attempt to see if she had received any suspicious messages or calls before her death, but it's unknown exactly what investigators found. To this day, it remains unclear whether Missy Bevers' killer was someone known to her. If so, it stands to reason that they had intentionally sought her out and orchestrated this entire crime. If not, then that points to the even more horrifying theory that this crime was committed by a stranger, someone with no known connection to the victim, indicating that they may have done this before or after and would be incredibly tough to track down. Later, when speaking to People magazine, Brandon theorized that the killer had been someone that intentionally targeted Missy. I still think whoever this person was knew my wife and had a motive. There's no doubt about it. But when he was asked about this years later, in 2024, Brandon would state, "Untargeted is my opinion." More after the break. Warrants filed by police during the course of their investigation shed light on the evidence they had found at and around the crime scene, including things that they had discovered through the Creekside Church's surveillance footage. One of the warrants revealed that the suspect possessed a smartphone at the time, which they may have used to stalk Missy Bevers and record her murder with. To this end, I've theorized that they likely have surveillance footage of the unsub using a device and its many features, such as a camera, flashlight, etc., and were able to glean certain details from it. But they've likely been unable to make a connection to any specific phone. Maybe it was being used in airplane mode, and it wasn't connected to any cell towers nearby, something like that. Another clue would be revealed in May of 2016, roughly 1 month after Missy's murder, when police announced that they were seeking a vehicle.
This is it's a hard investigation.
Midlothian Assistant Police Chief Kevin Johnson is now asking the public to help identify the driver of this 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima seen in a parking lot near the church a few hours before the murder of Missy Bevers.
We don't believe this is the vehicle of the killer.
Johnson says it's the last video lead they need to follow up on. The Nissan Altima is believed to be silver or light in color and has an oval bumper sticker under the plate.
Let me emphasize, though, we don't have any reason whatsoever to believe that this car or its driver are in any way involved in the murder of Missy Bevers.
Investigators say the video forensic unit out of Tarrant County says after reviewing the video of the killer inside the church, they've determined the person is 5'2" to 5'7", and they're not saying if it's a male or a female or even the weight of the person. Johnson did say who is no longer being looked at.
At this point, none of the family, friends, or co-workers of Missy Bevers are considered suspects. Despite various theories circulating through social media, none of the people named in our affidavits are now suspects.
It's always fresh on our minds. We're not forgetting about it.
Employees of the longtime family-owned gun store, Southwestern Firearms, provided police with the video of the Nissan Altima.
It's exciting just knowing that there's some lead that could possibly help, regardless if it was our parking lot or somewhere else. We're just excited that, there's something out there.
Employees are reminded daily of the Bevers murder because the church is just across the street.
This vehicle, believed to be a silver or gray Nissan Altima, had been slowly circling around in a nearby parking lot, just a stone's throw away from the Creekside Church. At one point, the vehicle turned its lights off and then back on, before driving away out of the camera's frame. As noted by police, the vehicle seemed to have a distinctive emblem or bumper sticker on the back bumper, directly below the license plate. This may have been a AAA bumper sticker, but it was impossible to make out in the dim light. In the years to come, police continued to release statements regarding their continued investigation, how they weren't going to disclose details publicly about it, but that there was no investigative method they would not utilize to track down the killer of this beloved mother of three. In 2017, when Midlothian PD still had an investigator working full-time on the case, they released a statement. Missy was a beloved mother, wife, daughter, and sister. She, her family, and our community deserve our best effort. Since the beginning, finding justice for Missy has been our #1 priority. We will do that by following the evidence wherever it may lead us. In 2018, the case was handed over from the single full-time investigator to a group of officers who planned to come in and start back from scratch, according to a report from January of that year. By that point, authorities estimated they were still averaging around 10 tips per week, which came predominantly through email, phone calls, and other information obtained through Crime Stoppers. As reported by the Daily Light, some came from local sources, whereas others came from hundreds or even thousands of miles away, some as far away as Australia. Some of the tips they had received were about a single person, Bobby Wayne Henry, a police officer from nearby Lancaster, who had some striking relations to the case. For starters, Henry was a police officer, meaning that he had access to the type of tactical gear worn by the unsub. He had also been suspended from the force in 1996 for committing an aggravated sexual assault. He was also a Midlothian local that attended the same Creekside Church where the crime was committed, and a vehicle matching his vehicle's description was reported driving away from the scene the morning of the crime. He also worked security at Missy's funeral, and, most remarkably, had a limp that caused a noticeable gait in his walk. While police were looking into Henry, they obtained search warrants for him and reportedly discovered child abuse material on multiple electronic devices he owned. For that reason, he was arrested in June 2017, and local gossip began to peg him as Missy's killer. However, Bobby Wayne Henry also seemed to have some information working in his favor, including the fact that he was 6'1", noticeably taller than the person seen in the surveillance footage. He reportedly no longer fit into his police tactical gear and had an alibi for the time of the crime. Reports also claimed that he passed a polygraph, but that means nothing because polygraphs are useless junk science. Regardless, because of the other factors, Henry was supposedly cleared as a potential suspect in Missy's murder, and as far as I know, was held in custody for roughly 2 months before being released without facing any actual charges for the alleged child abuse material. By 2019, because of the investigators being inundated with false leads, they struggled to discern between real and fake information. Those that followed the case online were on the lookout for anyone in the Midlothian region with a similar walk or gait as the unknown subject, and they were not afraid to let investigators know about their suspicions. However, not a single one of those leads seemed to have panned out, yet investigators would continue to look into every single one. Police at that time estimated that they had received over 2,000 tips. By 2021, just 2 years later, that number would eclipse 3,000. The 5-year mark for the investigation came and went that April, and still, answers remained elusive. Later that year, 2021, the FBI roped in Dr. Michael Nirenberg, a forensic podiatrist, to study the suspect's gait and walk. They did so in an attempt to figure out whether certain details, such as the offender's gender, could be determined via the surveillance footage. Dr. Nirenberg, however, noted that their gender could not be determined via the footage, that the weight of the equipment they were wearing at the time might have caused odd distortions in their gait, making it look, to use the word, feminine.
When it comes to solving crimes, investigators can use a variety of physical evidence, DNA, fingerprints, and something called forensic podiatry.
Caught on camera. It's the kind of video we've seen time and time again. Suspects committing crimes in masks or disguises. But one thing they can't hide is the way they walk. And that's where forensic podiatry comes into play.
something related to the foot or footwear or a footprint or gait, which is how somebody walks or moves generally.
By day, Dr. Micheal Nierenberg runs a foot clinic in Indiana. But when he's not with patients, he's an expert witness in criminal cases across the country.
When I look at a piece of footwear, I'll do what I've sort of called a shoe autopsy, looking at the bottom of the shoe, the wear pattern, the insole impression in the shoe. We can show that you wore the shoe and you were the only one who wore the shoe.
He's helped convict and exonerate people using gait analysis. So the FBI asked Dr. Nierenberg to apply his expertise to video of the Missy Bevers murder suspect.
When I took this case on, I had a police officer put on similar armor and walk with and without the armor.
He says wearing that heavy gear and carrying the weapon would affect gait. So it's difficult to know if that's how the killer would move in regular clothing. And while much has been made of the way the suspect walks,
you can see how the left foot is just slightly out-toed there and the right is significantly out-toed in this person.
Nierenberg says that is not uncommon.
A large number of people in the population obviously are going to have that.
Another big question in the case is gender. People aren't sure if the killer is a man or a woman. And Dr. Nierenberg says neither is he.
You can't make a determination if it's a male or a female because of variation in gait. That is a dangerous thing to do.
This is not the only video Nierenberg studied. He says investigators from the case sent him recordings of people to see if he thought they walked like the suspect.
The FBI sent me persons who were of both genders. I don't believe they knew that they were being recorded.
Of the men and women they sent you, how many did you say could be possibilities?
I believe one.
He says the FBI thanked him for his time and said they'd be in touch if they developed new evidence. That hasn't happened. He says the one thing about the case that he can't forget is the video never seen by the public.
It just sticks with you because you know what's coming.
He saw Missy Bevers inside the church. He says she turned her head, startled, appearing to hear something off camera. It was very likely the moment she realized she was not alone.
We've all watched those horror movies where you say you got to get out of that house. And, and this was the real thing.
To be clear, the doctor did not see the murder, but he tells us what he saw has stayed with him. On another note, he tells us gait is not unique. More than one person can have the same walk. So this is just one more piece of the puzzle. He tells us he would not participate in a prosecution where the only evidence was gait analysis.
While this expert opinion helped clear up this particular issue, it wasn't particularly helpful in bringing the investigators closer to identifying the unknown subject, meaning that police had taken one step forward, but it felt like resolution took 2 steps firmly back. It is believed that the unknown subject seen roaming around the Midlothian Creekside Church of Christ in police tactical gear early on the morning of April 18th, 2016 was Missy Bevers' killer. Whoever this person was, for whatever reason, they marked Missy for death and began laying the groundwork for a confusing crime scene at least half an hour before she arrived, leading many to assume that she may have been specifically targeted. It's unknown when exactly the unsubs showed up at the scene, but they began triggering the motion-activated cameras inside the church at approximately 3:50 a.m. At that point, roughly 25 to 30 minutes before Missy would arrive, they were already decked out in the tactical gear from head to toe. The surveillance footage showed them trying to pry open doors and windows with various tools, and they seemingly tried to make the scene look like a burglary. Likely so, when detectives arrived, they would think Missy interrupted the burglary and assume that this was a coincidental crime. However, this unknown individual had the foresight to wear the outfit inside the church, indicating that they may have already been aware of the interior cameras, and just did not want to roll the dice on having their features seen by prying eyes. Had they been to the church before? Or was them showing up early their attempt to get a lay of the land? Maybe had they been unaware of what time Missy would show up exactly, and spent their time waiting just fidgeting around anxiously, exerting their nervous energy on the church's interior. After Missy arrived at the church sometime between 4:15 and 4:20 a.m., she had entered the church and a skirmish ensued, during which tools that the unsub carried were used to kill Missy, causing puncture wounds to her head and chest. Students for the fitness class began to arrive at the church at approximately 4:35, but none would reportedly enter the church for at least 10 to 15 minutes, give or take. At that point, they then discovered Missy's body and made at least 2 separate phone calls to 911. It's not publicly known if any of them saw anything untoward after they started to arrive, indicating that the killer committed this crime and then fled within 15 or so minutes, giving the time of the crime actually occurring a rough estimate of 4:20 to 4:35 a.m. This is pretty much what we know. However, there is a lot more that we only know pieces of, leading to some lingering questions that have dominated the story in the years since. At first glance, online skeptics pointed out that the unsub's walk appeared to look feminine, but that may have just been due to the supposedly heavy tactical equipment they were wearing at the time. As we heard, the unsubs seemed to turn their feet outward from their body, a move that was more predominant on their right side than their left. In the footage, they can be seen favoring their right leg or foot, indicating a potential injury of some kind, either past or present at the time of the footage. However, what if this was an act? A ruse by the unsub to differentiate themselves from the crime? Considering the rest of the strange circumstances, that doesn't seem to really be out of the realm of possibility. Based on early police estimates, the unsub was only 5'2" to 5'7" tall, which is pretty short for a male, but pretty normal height for a woman. Later in 2019, authorities would amend the offender's supposed height to be 5 feet 8 inches tall with the helmet, so they were likely near the higher end of the original estimate, but still pretty short for a male. To me, this gives a little credence to the notion that the unsub was female, but that remains undetermined. Another dangling clue lies in the form of the vehicle seen in a nearby parking lot just a couple of hours before the crime. While originally believed to be a 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima, authorities later amended this to include the possibility of it being a 2010 to 2012 Nissan Infiniti G37, or even something similar, which had a unique oval bumper sticker on the middle of the back bumper, potentially a AAA sticker located directly under the license plate. Authorities have stated that they don't believe this vehicle was the killer's vehicle, but its mere presence there, just a stone's throw away from the crime scene, at around the time that the killer likely arrived, indicates some shady shit, in my opinion. This vehicle arrived at this neighboring parking lot between 1:58 and 2:04 a.m., roughly 2 hours before the killer first triggered the motion-activated cameras inside the church. It's very possible that this is when they began laying the groundwork for the crime, testing the security system of the church and heading over to hide in a parking lot nearby. That would explain why they only remained there for a few minutes, to see if the police or some security service responded. A search warrant filed by police indicates that a camera inside the church was actually activated at 2:23 a.m., but investigators were unable to determine what had triggered it. Is it possible that the killer first went to the church, busted open a door or a window, and then fled over into this neighboring parking lot to lie low for a few minutes? Then, when nothing happened, they returned to the church and began preparing. To me, this would explain this strange series of events, and why the camera was triggered by some unknown movement an hour and a half before the unsub would first be seen on film. Because of the circumstances, it's very likely that this unknown vehicle has a link to the killer, serving as either their vehicle or an accomplice's. I also think it's likely that they arrived at the church well before they were first seen on camera, giving them roughly 2 hours to prepare. For whatever reason, we can only guess at. Eight years after Missy Bevers' murder, this case continues to be overseen by the Midlothian Police Department, who have been joined and assisted throughout the entirety of the case by county, state, and federal investigators. While I am usually one to criticize small-town PDs that hold on to cases they're ill-equipped to handle, Midlothian has been pretty transparent about their investigation over the years, revealing the surveillance footage without hesitation early on, and continuing to reveal info about the case whenever needed. They have reportedly revealed most of the information they collected, but have kept back just a few vital pieces of information, which they would like to use in the eventual prosecution, should that ever come to pass. And unlike other stagnant investigations, Midlothian has refreshed their investigative team throughout to keep new ideas circulating, and have since been joined by a retired federal investigator, Greg Whelan, to help spearhead what remains the city's only unsolved homicide in recent years. In April 2023, the 7-year mark of the case, MPD released a statement. "We remain dedicated to solving the crime and prosecuting the offender or offenders. While the lead investigator works as much as possible on the case, our whole investigative team, led by Commander Byron Stewart, spends at least 1 to 2 days a month sequestered in a conference room where they can work without interruption on this case. On other occasions, the team meets at the scene of the crime and reassesses the incident." Sadly though, despite what seems to have been an earnest effort by Midlothian police to identify this killer and bring justice to her family, Missy and her loved ones have seemingly been lost in the shuffle, a footnote in their biggest tragedy. In one fell swoop, they lost someone incredibly important to them and have had their lives picked apart under a microscope in the time since. This has only increased their suffering, as they can't begin to remember the good times while every single moment they had with Missy is analyzed by others with no understanding of their dynamic. My heart really does go out to them. I can't imagine how tough things have been for them the past 8 years. Missy's husband, Brandon Bevers, was suspected of involvement early on and continues to be gossiped about online. In 2017, he released a statement in which he admitted that he was continuing to hold out hope for justice, but that he would not be playing a prominent role in the story moving forward. In his statement, he wrote, "I'm not giving up in faith, just a reality where I have spent many months driving myself crazy with this. I'm powerless in the big picture here to believe I have any ability to solve this. My biggest priority now is my daughter's welfare and to do whatever I can to help us move past the pain. It's not realistic for me to believe I can make a difference given the amount of time that has passed. My faith is in the Almighty and the investigators who are working to this day to provide justice and closure." Brandon would continue to speak out and raise awareness for this case, but did so in a way to try and keep Missy's memory alive, less so in a sense of highlighting information from the investigation. He also expressed a significant amount of disdain for the online commenters that had maligned him and his family, which he knew was content that his daughters would eventually discover for themselves, whether they sought it out or not. His eldest daughter, Hannah, would confirm that when she told Inside Edition in 2019. "I've had people on Facebook message me and say, 'Your dad did this. Your dad killed your mom.' My dad loved my mom, and I know that 100%. The family has continued to ask for their privacy, choosing only to make statements on specific occasions, yet they continue to hope that justice can be served, and that the unknown subject behind this crime can be brought to task for what they have done. Per Hannah in 2019, "It would definitely help to give some comfort to us knowing that the person that killed my mom isn't out there anymore." At the time of this recording, the 8-year mark of Missy's death just passed, yet investigators believe that resolution can still be attained. It just may take that one clue that somebody somewhere still has. Maybe they don't know it yet, but if they do, there may be an incentive to report it. A reward of $150,000 remains active for information leading to an arrest in this case. Anyone with information is encouraged to reach out to Midlothian PD at 972-775-7624. You can also send the police a message through their Facebook page, and can remain anonymous by contacting Ellis County Crime Stoppers at 972-937-PAYS. That's 972-937-7297. And even if you think your information may not be valuable, give it a shot. $150,000 isn't nothing, and you may help Missy's family obtain closure, something they've been seeking since her brutal murder more than 8 years ago. Until such a time, however, the story of Terri Missy Bevers will remain unresolved.